All right, so if you're a fan of Saturday Night Live, it is a big weekend for you. Jason Sudeikis, former writer and cast member on the show, he's returning to guest host for his first time. However, Mackenzie, Mr. Ted Lasso, he had to stop here to chat with us first, right?
Yeah, that's right. And who isn't a fan of Ted Lasso? As always, he lived up to the hype, and here's our conversation with Jason.
As you well know, Jason, and congratulations on all the success with Ted Lasso. There are many people across the country and world who think of it more as just a little comedy show. And certainly, I think one of the reasons why is because of the parallels to, real world sports coverage, especially when it comes to mental health. And so I guess, for you, how do you hope that this show maybe expands on that conversation, the relationship between sports and mental health?
Well, I mean, the hope of it was one that we came about very organically because it was really just a necessity to us on the storytelling side, knowing where Ted specifically was coming from and the issues he was dealing with like having anxiety attacks and panic attacks. And then the whole conversation swelled up even more in the real world around the release of the show with the Olympics and whatnot and Simone Biles, et cetera. And it was really profound timing. I'm being a little dismissive of the work that we put into it on the writing and acting and producing and everything by calling it a silly little comedy show. But that's really all we're trying to do is make a show that we're proud of, that makes people laugh and maybe makes people care about and feel for these make-believe characters. Yet these make-believe characters are going through real issues. So it's been truly humbling and profound to know that folks have connected to the show and its themes so wholeheartedly, and it has really shifted the conversation within people's own heads and hearts, much less their own families, and encouraging themselves to go to therapy or being more encouraging of people within their own family to go take care of themselves in some emotional or mental capacity. And it's certainly nothing that we would have thought was going to happen when we were writing these things, but it's a lovely, wonderful, surprise on the back end of it.
I feel like people say that the show has done more than anything in selling the U.S. audience on the EPL and even European soccer. Do you think that that's fair to say? I
mean, I think FIFA, the video game, has done far more. I think the success of our women's team in the United States has done far more. But if we've added to that conversation of those two endeavors, then so be it. I know that when we were pitching the show, I would say that the show's as much about soccer as Rocky is about boxing, and yet we have in a sneaky way made people care about this fictional team in this very real sport, and it's pretty great. As someone that didn't know much about the game prior to doing the commercials, much less the television show, you can't help but fall in love with it, especially if you get the opportunity to go see a match in person at a place. It has the closest example I can give to folks in the States is like to see a high school that has a tremendous history or a college basketball team, like going to see like KU Jayhawks play at Allen Fieldhouse, and the fervor, that energy, except multiply that by about 10 times and put it at a national level, and then you're dealing with a little bit of the enthusiasm that the world has for their different clubs.
A lot of enthusiasm around your Chiefs as well, of course. I'm glad, first of all, I'm glad we caught you off of a nice win against Washington over the weekend. But I was curious, because we've interviewed Don Cheadle before, and he's talked about his love for Chiefs Kingdom as well. Is there like a group text going on where you guys commiserate and chat, like you, Rudd, Cheadle, Riggle, like all you guys, or no?
No. I mean, Cheadle and I will have texted separately about things. Paul and Rudd and I and Eric Stonestreet and Dave Keckner have our own thing for the charity event that we do back home. And then the one that was the most fun was when we who were we playing against? In the Super Bowl when we played against, was it San Francisco against the Chiefs 2 years ago? Yeah. And me texting with all my buddies from the Lonely Island, Andy and Yorma and Akiva, because they were San Francisco fans, and so we were talking trash back and forth. That was a good one that we ended up coming out on top of, and that text chain then ceased pretty quickly afterwards. With some congrats. So maybe that'll get going again.
All right. The Chiefs have had kind of an up and down season, as you're well aware of, Jason. If Ted Lasso were to walk into that locker room right now and give the team a pep talk, what would he say?
Boy, what would he say? More ice baths. Y'all look like you need more ice baths. I mean, that's what, that's what it is. And either people will agree and do it, or they'll disagree and they'll just play better because they're like, I don't want to do an ice bath. It's cold, very cold.
The Ted Lasso EPL deal, does that impact the upcoming season? We know Apple TV mentioned it was only supposed to run for 3 seasons. Is that still the case?
The EPL deal was definitely influences things. So we can use, other teams. I mean, other teams have been really, really wonderful and supportive of us from early on, even starting with, Tottenham when we did the initial commercials back in 2013. But yeah, that just expands our opportunity for storytelling in different ways for the season to go, wins, losses, and be able to show, the just how Richmond, our fake team, is doing, trying to establish them as being a real entity in that incredible league. And as far as the other seasons, this is when I feel most like a coach in my real life. Is it's tough to talk about season 4 when we're right still in the middle of season 3. We're right now one game at a time, one season at a time.
Yeah. Jason has teamed up with Abbott and Real Madrid to support the first of its kind partnership supporting health and nutrition of children. So Jason, tell us how this came about and why this makes so much sense for you right now.
Well, it came about to me by them asking, both Real Madrid and Abbott, which was very flattering because they're both at the top of their fields in their respective areas. And I think. And I get nervous when, Real Madrid supporters, I mean, this is the biggest soccer club in the world and has been for almost a century. When they see me in front of this thing, that I get, concerned that people there are going to think they're hiring me to coach or something. And it's like, no. I'm just here to lend support on my platform to talk about the great things they're doing with Abbott. And they're, the three of us are all combining to help shine a light on, help, educate and identify and then prevent children's malnutrition. And it was really, fairly organic in the sense that I even have a connection with Abbott because they use this thing called the MUAC Z-tape, which is basically a tape measure that they put around a child's arm. It's the quickest way, easiest way, and most effective way to measure to see where a child's nutrition level is at. And that tape itself was developed in Kansas City, my hometown, at a place called Children's Mercy Hospital, which is a hospital that I've myself and many of my friends have supported and done charity for and with and in support of for the last decade or so. And so it really was a nice little 3-part harmony. And I was flattered that people, at both organizations are like, oh yeah, well, Jason Sudeikis and his silly little comedy show represents some of the, some of the philosophies and feelings that we have for the world.
Hey, sports fans, if you want to watch more sports seriously, be sure to check out these clips right here. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel to see all the great content from us here at USA Today Sports.